Many people have heard of James Bond, otherwise known as 007. He's appeared in many films and, of course, started off by Ian Fleming in many books, but little was known about his pets, or if he had any. Well, Bond, being a busy secret agent, obviously didn't have time to have pets that couldn't look after themselves. So the only pet that we know of was his cat, Felix Bond. And because his master was a very special secret agent, Felix was no ordinary cat. This story is about James Bond's cat, Felix Bond, otherwise known as 007 3/4, in The Revenge of Fishfinger. Chapter 1. It was a busy Sunday evening at the Tesco distribution depot in Basingstoke, still in full operational mode, loading trailers with the much-needed food stocks. This was in readiness to be shipped out to the grocery-hungry stores all across the south that had depleted stock levels after their busy trading weekend. No one even noticed a small golden juggernaut tank roll into one of the non-operational loading bays, and the two rats in tight black ninja outfits springing from the rear entrance of the tank. "Quick, Jingle, shoot the tightrope line up there into the rafters," said the larger of the two rats. Jingle used a crossbow device which shot a hook attached to a spindle of thin nylon twine on the device. The hook immediately swung around one of the high ceiling struts halfway across the warehouse. "Ready?" said Jingle, and with that the larger rat climbed onto Jingle's back, and after pressing a switch, the crossbow immediately came to life and pulled the pair swiftly off the ground towards the ceiling beam in the super quick time. Once in position, Jangle the fat rat used his electronic automated telescopic glasses to better observe the layout of the warehouse. "I found them," said Jangle, pointing in the direction of where the frozen fish fingers were being stored in a large refrigerated unit. Springing across the beam using ninja gymnastics, they soon made their way over to the fish finger unit. Using the crossbow device again and re-securing the twine on the beam over the unit, Jangle climbed once more onto Jingle's back, and they descended onto the roof of the large walk-in freezer containing the golden fish fingers. From his belt, Jangle pulled out a laser torch to cut through a hole in the ceiling, and once achieving this, both rats lowered themselves inside into the freezing cold environment. Despite the freezing temperature, both rats grinned at each other when they saw it was stacked to the brim with packets of golden fish fingers. "The boss is going to be pleased with this haul," exclaimed Jingle. "How many boxes and how many fish fingers do you think?" asked Jangle. "In a container this size, I would say at least 200,000 boxes containing 20 fish fingers in each box, so approximately 4 million golden fish fingers," replied Jangle. "Wow," gasped Jangle. Jingle ushered Jangle to get on with the job at hand. Now they had confirmed the unit was full of fish fingers. Their next task was to use the powerful laser pen to cut a large access hole through the freezer floor and the warehouse floor beneath that. After 30 minutes, this task was complete. Jangle signaled the juggernaut tank operator with their navigational position so that they could use the underground sewers to find and position the tank under the newly created access hole in the floor. Soon Jangle could hear the purr of the tank's engine as it pulled up below the hole. Next, a platform automatically raised itself from the tank up through the hole, where Jingle and Jangle could start to load the boxes of fish fingers. With 10 boxes of fish fingers loaded onto the platform, it lowered itself back into the tank with its haul. Both rats, using their ninja skills, jumped down into the tank, and the cargo doors closed behind them. "Why would the boss only want us to steal 10 boxes and leave so much behind?" said Jingle. "We didn't," smirked Jangle, and with that there was a large explosive sound, and the tank rocked side to side. "The grenade I left behind before we jumped will have destroyed all the remaining stock in that freezer," said Jangle. "The boss knows that by destroying the vast bulk of fish fingers, his 10 stolen boxes will become invaluable." Jingle grinned back at Jangle. "Oh, I see. Very clever," retorted Jingle. In his secret underground lair beneath Winchester Cathedral, Fishfinger was pacing the floor, waiting patiently for his hench rats to return. Addressing the other crime syndicate bosses, he elaborated on his plan. "Gentle cats, can you please indulge me with your patience just a little bit longer, as my hench rats should be returning shortly after carrying out their mission successfully." "But why destroy such rich, valuable, top-quality golden Fishfinger stock, Fishfinger?" shouted one of the evil crime lords. "Ah, gentle cats, you have not thought this through properly. When Tesco realise they cannot stock their shelves with golden fish fingers, I can demand in exchange my 200 fish fingers with them at a much higher and grossly inflated price, or more importantly, in exchange of even greater importance." The bosses looked at each other in disbelief and questionable concern. "What important exchange?" responded another crime lord. "How many times has our criminal master plan been thwarted by that government top-secret agent nuisance who's plagued me the whole of my evil genius career?" sighed Fishfinger. "You're referring to Bond?" questioned another crime boss. "Yes, exactly, Bond. Felix Bond, licensed to purr. The bane of my life," remarked Fishfinger. "They will desperately want access to golden Fishfinger stock, and in return I want Felix Bond. Ha ha! Ha 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 ha! Meow!" Fishfinger evil laugh rings out. Chapter 2. The Mission. In his luxury cat kennel in the lush back garden of Paddock View, in the sleepy Littleton village, Agent Felix, dressed in his best black and white fur tuxedo, is laying on a luxury pillow drinking milk, shaken but not stirred. Suddenly the catnap in his tail started buzzing and twitching. M was trying to contact him. Bond activated the plasma screen on his penthouse kennel wall, and a live feed video of a very smartly dressed cat in a pinstriped fur suit smoking a catnip cigar appeared. "Bond, it's bad news," sighed M. "Fishfinger has been at it again, old chap, but this time it's very serious." "What's happened, M?" questioned Felix Bond. "Fishfinger has stolen 200 golden fish fingers from the Tesco distribution centre in Basingstoke." "Only 200, M? Hardly a disaster. They must have millions left for distribution." "No, Felix, that's just the point. There isn't. It is evil genius madness. He's destroyed all the remaining stock of golden fish fingers. He's offering to exchange the 200 he has, but only if we meet his price and give you to him." "I see," said Felix Bond very calmly. "Then you had better do as he asks, M." "Bond!" M replies in horror. "When and where does he want me, M?" Bond asked. "He wants you incapacitated and delivered to neutral territory. Checkpoint Charlie," sighed M. "Then we better give him what he wants," replies Bond bravely. "But I need to have an urgent meeting with Q first to discuss my secret agent equipment options to give me a small fighting chance of survival once I'm in Fishfinger's clasp." "I will tell Q to expect you in the next 20 minutes, M agrees. "Fishfinger has given us an hour to deliver you, so it will be very tight for time." "Felix, be careful and good luck," cries M. "Thanks, M. Hopefully I'll see you on the other side," and Bond signs off. Jumping into his Catspin Martin sports car, Bond speeds off towards Q's workshop. Arriving at Q's, the doddery old cat's workshop in Chestnut Avenue, Q was already by the door waiting for Bond. "Do come on, 007 3/4, Q says sternly. "If we are to save your life, time is of the essence." Inside Q's workshop, Felix is astounded at all the new gadget technology and cannot help himself inquire as to what some of them are. "What's this one, Q, with the spout on it?" asked Bond. "Does it shoot hot steam at your combat enemy?" "You can use this to throw boiling water and steam at your enemy, 007 3/4, replied Q. "I call it a kettle." "Fascinating," replies Bond. "What will they think of next?" "Now pay attention, 007 3/4. This device here looks like an ordinary stick, acts like an ordinary stick, and is an ordinary stick. But if you hold it with both paws, you can use it to beat your enemies with." "Very clever, Q," Bond says with amazement. "This small yellow oval device here can be used to make your enemies temporarily blind, just by pointing it at your opponent's eyes and squeezing it. I call this a lemon." "Amazing, absolutely amazing," gasped Bond. You're always ahead of the game. Now finally, 007 and 3/4, these last two devices will, or should at least, save your life if your enemy tries to dispose of you by drowning. I call these arms bands. Bond, Q, you never cease to amaze me. Well, come along, 007 and 3/4. You have an appointment with Fishfinger, and we both know he doesn't like to be kept waiting, Q says rather sadly. As Bond speeds away from Chestnut Avenue heading towards Checkpoint Charlie, Q shouts out one last instruction. And please try to bring the kettle back in one piece, Bond. I make my tea with that. Chapter 3, Checkpoint Charlie. It was near midnight at the sleepy Checkpoint Charlie border crossing on the A33 into Mitchell Devil Woods. This was the home to many distinguished reputable countryside animals, but not least the large population of rabbits who lived throughout. Fishfinger knew that this was neutral territory where no cat extradition warrant could be upheld, and he was free to move around unchecked by any authority. He waited on the rabbit side of the border crossing in his posh Rolls Canardly, being driven by one of his most frightening and largest hench cats, Claws. Felix Bond sped to an abrupt stop in his classic Catspin Martin just on the cat side of the rabbit border crossing. He calmly leapt from his vehicle and, walking very calmly towards the barrier, he shouted across to Fishfinger, "I'm here, Fishfinger, just where you wanted me, and on time, as requested." Fishfinger threw the catnip cigar he'd been smoking from his mouth to the ground, and replied, "Ah, Mr. Bond, not quite to the instructions I demanded. I insisted that you were incapacitated, but you appear to be completely mobile." 007 and 3/4 did not flinch when he stared straight into Fishfinger's eyes, and replied, "You don't have to worry, Fishfinger. I'm not going to be any trouble. Just keep up your end of the bargain, and release your 10 boxes of goldfish fingers to Tesco, and I will come along very quietly." Fishfinger drew in a deep breath and retorted, "Trust you, Mr. Bond? Oh, we both know how this will go down, don't we? Let my colleague, Mr. Claus, search your person for any hidden secret weapons. I know how much the clever Mr. Q likes to ensure you have all the latest spy gadgets at your disposal." Felix Bond put his paws in the air, signalling his willingness to comply. "Have at it, Fishfinger," he replied. Felix was slightly intimidated by the size and muscular body of Claus, but even more worrying was the evil grin of satisfaction on Claus' face as razor-sharp metallic claws shot out the end of his paws. "You see, Mr. Bond, I have my own secret gadgets as well for you to experience," Fishfinger bragged. Claus searched Bond through thoroughly, discovering the latest top-secret gadgets he had only just recently acquired from Q. "And what's this, Mr. Bond?" said Fishfinger. "It looks like an ordinary stick, but what devilish secret weapon has Q disguised this for you to use as?" With that, Claus lifted the stick into the air and brought it down full force onto the wooden barrier crossing, which immediately snapped in half from the sheer force of the stick striking it. "Extremely clever and very dangerous, Mr. Bond," exclaimed Fishfinger. "Another destructive weapon created by your Mr. Q, I see." Felix smiled, and with his usual wit and charm, replied, "I was hoping to stick it to you, Fishfinger, but it seems Claus has spoiled the surprise and ruined all the fun I was going to have." Fishfinger, infuriated by Bond's lack of respect, and noticing that Claus was not intimidated by Bond at all, angrily replied, Mr. Bond, we will see if you are still grinning like a Cheshire cat once we have you back at my lair and had our fun with you." Fishfinger instructed Claus to check for any other hidden weapons on Bond, and Claus then pulled out a kettle from another of Felix's fur pockets. "So what's this fiendish device, Mr. Bond?" Fishfinger asked inquisitively. Felix, still acting cheeky, replied, "Oh, it's just something Q gave me to make the tea with." Claus and Fishfingers casting their eyes over the kettle, then sighing loudly, "You must think I was born yesterday, 007 and 3/4. Obviously this dastardly weapon serves some purpose of delivering scalding hot water or steam to use against your enemies," he said smugly. "For making tea with. You must think us both very stupid, Mr. Bond. Fishfinger smiled to Claus, and Claus smiled back in satisfaction. Felix tilted his head to one side, revealing his handsome features, which had won and broke the hearts of so many lady cats, replied, acting as though he'd been caught in the act. Well, Fishfinger, it looks like you have me banged to rights, doesn't it? Claus, cuff Bond, and put him in the Rolls Gladly. I cannot wait to get you back to my lair, Bond. I have a new device I want to introduce to you, that I have built especially for this occasion. Felix was hauled and thrown into the back of the Rolls Gladly, and Claus drove off at breakneck speed, with Fishfinger sat in front with him. Bond was falling all about in the back of the car, and rolled from side to side as Claus sped the vehicle round the windy roads. Steady on there, Claus, shouted Bond. I have my fur suit pressed especially for this occasion, and you're getting it all wrinkled with your erratic bad driving. Fishfinger leant over the back of his seat, looking directly at the incapacitated agent's face, and rebuked. Wrinkled fur suits will soon be the very least of your worries, 007 3/4. As he finished his statement, Bond could not help notice the evil sneer of satisfaction beaming all over Fishfinger's face. The journey seemed to take forever, and Bond noticed some of the landmarks before the vehicle disappeared down a cap-made tunnel underneath what he assumed to be Winchester Cathedral. The lighting in the tunnel was very poor, but eventually the tunnel opened up into a huge underground cavern work area, which was full of impressive computers, machinery, and dangerous-looking weapons. He could see several evil cat and rat scientists in their white fur lab coats busily working away. Made a few home improvements, have we, Fishfinger? Asked Bond sarcastically. Fishfinger replied, equally sarcastically, Yes, Mr. Bond, we've been extremely busy, and now with you out of our way, I can finally put my grand, evil master plan into full operation again. Your grand master plan? Inquired Bond glibly. And exactly what is your grand master plan, Fishfinger? I mean, after all, now you have me, and I assume you will be disposing of me very soon, you can at least enjoy having a last laugh by taunting me with your grand master plan, just to remind me how helpless I am to stop you. Fishfinger went into deep thought for a moment, and then replied, You are right, Mr. Bond. It will give me great pleasure and satisfaction watching you squirm helplessly as my evil hedgecats and rats put into action the crime of the century, completely authored by myself. Felix knew his position was helpless, but that was a dangerous position he had found himself in many times before, and he had always managed to come up with the unknown plan B to escape the clutches of his enemies, and hopefully an idea would soon materialize in his brain. But in the meantime, he needed to listen intently to Fishfinger whilst he gloated and bloated the details of his grand master plan to Bond. After all, if he was to stop Fishfinger, he must first know and understand what his evil plan is. Chapter 4. The Master Plan. Fishfinger stepped over to an impressive-looking cocktail cabinet. Now let me see, he said, enjoying the moment. Shall I have partly skimmed? No. Shall I have unpasteurized milk? No. What about full fat? Ah, of course, for this special occasion, let's have cream. He looked over at Bond, still helpless in his restraints, with Claus guarding him. We must not be inhospitable to our guest, Claus, Fishfinger said, celebrating the moment. 007 3/4. I believe your preference is full fat shaken, but not stirred, is it not? Bond looked up glumly at Fishfinger and replied, A last drink for the cat on death row, Fishfinger? Oh, I assure you, Mr. Bond, you will not die on death row. I have a far more exciting demise planned for you. Fishfinger could not help himself breaking into loud, evil laughter after saying this, as the thought of his evil plan to dispose of Bond came to the front of his mind, prompted him to do so. But now for my grand master plan, Mr. Bond. You wanted to know all about it, didn't you? Felix Bond nodded in agreement, and took one final chance at upsetting Fishfinger by replying, Well, I wonder when you were going to get on with it, Fishfinger. I was beginning to think your plan was to bore me to death with your overinflated ego. Fishfinger sneered back angrily at Bond and then said, "OK, Mr. Bond, let's see if you'll still find it amusing when I tell you that all my agents are positioned strategically near every supermarket distribution centre in the country, and that one word from me and all the golden fish fingers in the country will be destroyed at the same time." Felix was intrigued. "You're not even that mad enough to consider doing that, Fishfinger. You love golden fish fingers." Fishfinger turned towards Bond abruptly and staring straight into his eyes, replied, "Oh yes, Mr. Bond, I do love golden fish fingers, and that is why I have something I'd like to show you, something rather special. Ha 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 ha." He laughed contagiously. Felix was ushered down a long corridor to a door that opened into a football pitch-sized refrigeration chamber. It was full of boxes of frozen golden fish fingers. Even Bond was shocked by the sheer enormity of what he had seen with his own eyes. "How many fish fingers are there?" Bond asked incredulously. Fishfinger grinned and calmly replied, 250 million, Mr. Bond." Felix's jaw dropped silently, and he moved his mouth, wording 250 million. "Now you understand, Mr. Bond," Fishfinger exclaimed. "With all the fish finger stock destroyed, my special stockpile will become priceless, as millions upon millions of hungry children expecting fish fingers for their Friday tea time treat, and of course not forgetting the cat aristocracy and royal monarchy will pay fortunes just to get their hands and of course their paws on my fish finger stockpile." Fishfinger gloated. "You human!" shouted Felix. "Steady on there with the insults, Mr. Bond. I am just as much a part of the animal gentry as yourself. The only difference is that I will soon be the richest cat in the country." "I'll find a way to stop you, Fishfinger, of that you can be assured," exclaimed Bond. "Really, Mr. Bond, you have yourself to worry about. Never mind the idea of being able to stop me. Let me introduce you to a brilliant machine my scientists built that mass produces fish fingers from raw fish product." Claus pushed Felix over to a lift, and once the doors opened, was ushered inside to join Fishfinger. After the lift ascended up to the next level, Bond was made to get out and follow Fishfinger onto a metal gantry walkway which sat over the top of a huge open container full of raw fish, with more and more raw fish being poured in every minute. "You see, Mr. Bond, the tank below receives the raw fish product, which is then fed into the mincer and processed before being coated with golden breadcrumbs, creating golden fish fingers," Fishfinger explained. As Felix looked down into the huge metal vat, he now knew how Fishfinger intended to dispose of him. "So I am to become part of your golden fish finger product, am I, Fishfinger?" "Yes, Mr. Bond," Fishfinger replied with a smirk. "Mixed in with all that fish, I'm hoping that you will not cause anyone indigestion when they unwittingly eat your body parts, Mr. Bond." Felix, stalling for time while looking and thinking of any opportunities to escape, replied, "I never needed to eat you, Fishfinger, but you still always managed to turn my stomach." "Throw me your last insult, 007 3/4, retorted Fishfinger. "It will be your last." Felix suddenly noticed the large electromagnet obviously used for moving heavy metal objects and equipment around the factory suspended above Claw's head. Quickly charging past Claw's and whipping his tail across Fishfinger's face, with the element of surprise he managed to get to the control panel and quickly worked out which buttons operated the electromagnet. Using the old trusty flick knife gadget hidden in his tail, which Claus had not noticed during his search, Felix quickly sliced through the ropes, holding his paws together. Then, pushing the right switch on the control panel, the electromagnet came on at full strength. This attracted the metal claws in Claw's paws, who was then completely surprised when he was forcibly lifted off the ground by the magnet, and he found himself with his paws magnetized and firmly held in place, helplessly to the magnet. This left Felix with just Fishfinger to deal with, and he had not forgotten his martial art training from being a master at both Taekwondo and Kung Fu combined, otherwise known as the deadly martial art of Tai Fu. With his license to purr, he called out his signature meow, meow, before tail-chopping Fishfinger on the back of the neck. Fishfinger quickly lost his footing and, leaning top-heavily towards the gantry safety paw rail, one final blow from Felix's tail knocked him over the rail. Fishfinger fell screaming into the large vat of raw fish. Felix Bond, licking the pink pad of one of his paws and grooming the fur back smartly on his head, looked down at Fishfinger, who was now spinning around with the rest of the raw fish, and said, "Don't worry too much, Fishfinger. You always said you loved golden fish fingers, and now's your chance to meet them up close and personal." As Bond walked away, all he could hear was the desperate cry of Fishfinger's last word, "Bond!" The job wasn't over yet for Felix, because although he had chopped off the head of the snake, the body of Fishfinger's organisation would still carry on his master plan, unless Felix could find a way to stop them. Chapter 5. The Revenge of Claws. Felix knew the odds were still stacked against him, even with Fishfinger out of the way. Fishfinger's hench cats would be strategically placed all over the country, waiting for Fishfinger's command to destroy the golden Fishfinger stock in all the distribution warehouses. "That's it," said Felix to himself. "If I can get to Fishfinger's communication centre, I can imitate Fishfinger and tell all the hench cats to stand down and return to base," he said to himself confidently. While Felix was pondering over his next move, he had not noticed that Claws, who was securely magnetised by his metal claws to the large industrial electromagnet, had used his incredible strong cat muscles to move his body weight to the edge of the magnet, and with one final physical exertion had freed himself from its influence. Claws, seeing Felix run down a corridor, made hot pursuit. A silly thing to do at this time of the day, but he liked hot pursuit soup. So after drinking it, he then ran off after Felix, who now had a 15-minute head start. Bond found the central communication room and saw that there were 3 hench cats, all busy with their communication headphones on. He was able to sneak up behind the first one and, using a Typhoon tail chop, quickly dispense with him, but this had now alerted the others. The other 2 hench cats rushed Bond, but they were no match for his mastery of Typhoon martial arts, and after several tail chops, Bond found himself alone in the communications room. After donning one of the pairs of headphones, Felix started to twiddle the dials, trying to get hold of the cat henchman frequency. Finally, being able to identify the chatter on the radio, and knowing that he tuned in, he used his secret agent ability to imitate Fishfinger, and in a low, evil voice said, "Hench cats, it is I, Fishfinger. The mission is aborted. All hench cats to return to base for further instructions." The hench cats all acknowledged what they thought to be their master's instructions. Felix had a satisfied grin on his face, until he heard the rush as Claws ran into the room and, raising his razor-sharp claws in the air, shouted, "Death to you, Bond!" Felix knew he was no match for Claws' huge size and physical strength, as all his Typhoon martial art tail chops had little or no effect on Claws at all. On the other paw, Claws was making Felix very uncomfortable, throwing him around the room like a rag doll. "You have no chance, Bond," screamed Claws. "I'm far more powerful, stronger, and invincible compared to you." Felix had already worked this out for himself, and he knew that if he didn't think of an idea soon, this could be the end of him. And then he saw his opportunity. Over on one of the communication panels was a large electrical power cable. He tried to lure Claws over towards the panel by positioning himself immediately in front of it. Claws didn't appear to be too interested at first, so Felix needed to use his wits to entice Claws. "Claws, is it true that you were created in some freak laboratory accident?" shouted Bond. Claws snarled in temper at what Bond had said and charged at him, hardly leaving Felix time to yank the large electrical cable out of the communication hub. Just as Claws was upon Felix, turned the now exposed electrical wires up towards the charging body in front of him. Claws yelped in agony at the full force of the electrical current coursed through his body. At first it was almost appeared that Claws was not going to stop coming, but eventually he collapsed into a large heap on the floor, his fur still singeing from the powerful electric current. Exhausted, Felix was able to raise M on the communication console, providing the coordinates of the Fishfinger's lair, so an elite team of MI5 cat agents could assault the lair to take control. Felix would work from the inside to ensure their access into the lair was guaranteed, and to do this, he would have to stealthily work his way through to the control room. With claws incapacitated, this would seem like a walk in the park, as he knew his powerful Typhoon martial art tail chop would get him where he needed to go. And that is the end of the story of Revenge of Fishfinger.